We are back with a Fox News alert. President Trump is set to receive an intelligence briefing this morning as the violence in the Middle East continues to worsen. Lucas Tomlinson is live in Washington with the very latest. Hi, Lucas.
Well, good early morning, Carly. The U.S. Embassy in Jerusalem remains closed through Friday as President Trump continues to weigh whether or not to launch airstrikes against Iran. Here's the president yesterday.
They should have made the deal. I had a great deal for them. They should have made that deal. 60 days we talked about it, and in the end they decided not to do it, and now they wish they did it. And they want to meet, but it's a little late to meet, but they want to meet, and they want to come to the White House. They'll even come to the White House, so we'll see. I may do that.
Now, the Iranians rejected that, saying they will not be coming to Washington. Its mission to the UN posting no Iranian official has ever asked to grovel at the gates of the White House. The only thing more despicable than his lies is his cowardly threat to take out Iran's supreme leader. Iran does not negotiate under duress, shall not accept peace under duress. And minutes ago, the U.S. Embassy in Jerusalem posted a new message urging U.S. government employees and family members in Israel to continue sheltering in place after the largest hospital in the country was hit by an Iranian ballistic missile. Yesterday, Trump's ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee, posting on X, urgent notice. American citizens wanting to leave Israel. U.S. Embassy in Israel is working on evacuation flights and cruise ship departures. And while President Trump mulls whether to strike Iran, U.S. military assets continue to pour into the Middle East. The Israelis also have a ground option for destroying Fordo, Iran's massive nuclear weapons complex, using elite commandos from Unit 5101 Shaldag. Carly?
Important to point out there. Lucas Tomlinson live for us. Lucas, thank you. Israel's special envoy for combating anti-Semitism, Michal Cotler-Wunsh, joins me now, and thank you so much for doing just that. According to the Wall Street Journal, President Trump has approved an attack plan for Iran, but is holding off to see if Tehran will abandon their nuclear program. So what are the chances, in your estimation, of Iran voluntarily giving it up at this point?
So thank you, Carly, for having me on. And I would say the chances are zero voluntarily giving up. And we have seen systematically this genocidal Islamic regime in Iran utilize billions of its resources, fueled by the very same anti-Semitism that saw the annihilation of Jews in a final solution before their eyes, even as the Allies were nearing. That is what we are experiencing now. As you mentioned, the largest hospital in Israel's south was targeted deliberately. And as Iran continues to target civilians, children, people sleeping in their beds, and as we said, a hospital this morning that, of course, services and employs Arabs and Jews side by side, we know that the only mission that they have continues to be not just the annihilation of the state of Israel, the small devil, but the big devil, the destruction of the United States and our shared civilization.
A notable comment from President Trump yesterday on the role Russia is playing in all of this. Listen here.
And I spoke to him yesterday, and I said, he actually offered to help mediate. I said, do me a favor. Mediate your own. Let's mediate Russia first, okay? I said, Vladimir, let's mediate Russia first. You can worry about this later.
Point taken. And also, a Telegraph is reporting that China reportedly sent mystery transport planes to Iran, and these planes often carry military weapons. So will Russia and China play a role in this? And if so, what will it be?
Look, Carly, we're at this moment, we're an axis of evil, and you have mentioned many of its partners in this 2025 axis of evil that is being emboldened by the lack of moral clarity of over the past more than 20 months of a raging war waged and launched on the October 7th massacre attack of barbarism on civilization. That axis of evil and all of its proxies that they have been placed around the world begins with what we see as a showdown, as the front lines, if you will, taking place right now as we speak with this attack on the state of Israel. But as I said, and as anti-Semitism, a thousands of year-old hate teaches, what begins with the Jews, and in this case, the Jew among nations, that is the state of Israel, never ends with the Jews. And so the understanding that it is that lethal anti-Semitism that we have seen a tsunami of in the past almost 21 months since that October 7th massacre, that continues raging and fueling and actually binding together that axis of evil that you have mentioned, that peddle and continue to spread blood libel that actually incites and fuels cold-blooded murder, including in Washington, including in Boulder, Colorado, is something that we all have to be paying attention to as this war of barbarism and civilization continues.
Yeah, and you mentioned Boulder, Colorado. The people there were participating in an event to raise awareness for the hostages in Gaza. And you can't forget them. How do these missile attacks between Iran and Israel right now impact their situation, still being held hostage?
Carly, the devastation of thinking that there are 53 human beings languishing in the terror tunnels and dungeons, that Hamas, but one genocidal terror proxy of that fire ring that an Islamic regime in Iran built over decades, fueling with weapons, with systems, and with the funds for an underground terror tunnel system longer than the New York subway system, is unbearably heartbreaking. The knowledge for these families, and I have to be very clear, that the violation of law and morality in which their continued holding has been sort of received with international silence, false moral equivalency, and impunity is being, in many ways, what has emboldened this stage of the war to escalate. And our heartache and our heartbreak cannot be complete until, of course, the return of those 53, those who are alive to their families, and those who are dead for burial in Israel.
We will continue to keep them in our prayers as President Trump says all options remain on the table on how to respond to Iran, and a final decision of his has yet to be made. Michal Cotler-Wunsh, thank you for joining us.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.